Now, they're tasked with putting the country's criminals behind bars, but unlike the police, prosecutors aren't part of the rollout. The head of the National Prosecuting Authority, Shamila Batoy, has told Parliament's Watchdog Committee, SCOPA, that around a quarter of her workforce is down with COVID-19 at the moment. Let's cross live to the NPA spokesperson, Bulelwa Makeke, about this. Bulelwa, thank you so much for joining us. Both the Hawks and the NPA say they're running at around 25% less capacity because of the virus. You guys are our corruption busters. Should we be worried?
Thank you very much. Good morning to your viewers, and thank you for having us this morning. Should you be worried as South Africa when corruption busters are also, corruption busters are also part of our society. So we all are affected the same way as the rest of society in this current time. It is really difficult. It is a really difficult time if you realize that these are front-facing people that are actually most of the time facing and delivering justice to people in courts, and they have to come into contact with people at all times. So it's a difficult thing for our prosecutors. If I have to take you through the kind of statistics that we're dealing with in the past, say, in the past 6 months, for instance, we've had around 311 infections. And over the period since this pandemic started, we looking at figures around 756 people who are actually positive. Of course, that also includes other professionals in the organization, not just prosecutors, but it's a dire situation if you think about the infections are not the only thing that matters. What also matters is the kind of impact that this has on people's stress levels, people's anxiety in actually dealing with this pandemic in their lives. It affects their families, it affects everything around them. So it's really a difficult time for everybody right now. And of course, law enforcement is deeply affected.
Like you're saying, Bulelwa, they are front-facing our prosecutors, and you've had hundreds of infections already. So it makes sense that you should have been part of the initial rollout. Were you given a reason why you weren't included from the start?
Look, it has been a difficult process for government. Let's say that, and it's understandable that at some point they had to prioritize people who are older, who are more vulnerable to serious illness and possibly death as a result of the pandemic. But with time, it really became clear that if the front-facing people are not prioritized, then we're going to have a dire situation. So I'm happy to note that the National Department of Health is actually coming to the party and prioritizing just front-facing public servants particularly. You would have seen that they prioritized the educators not so long ago, and the current drive with the police now, which is giving a whole big number of people who are being vaccinated. So we don't have concrete plans yet for prosecutions, but it is in the pipeline, and the NPA is consulting with the National Department of Health in that regard.
Usually when someone returns a positive result, then, the close contacts have to isolate, and it really puts a spanner in the works of any business, any organization. And the wheels of justice normally turn slowly as it is. So how much slower have things been now that you're running at below 100%?
Yes, no, so that's a very important question, actually. It's very important to note, if you would look at our performance that we've reported recently, the annual performance from last year, performance has dropped drastically. Of course, with cases not proceeding last year for a long time in court, that would have had to have an impact in how the performance reflects. It has deeply affected the way that, the finalization of cases. So the number of backlogs has increased. The number of outstanding cases has increased. And the period it takes now to finalize has increased. It takes longer now to finalize cases. because in between then, the country has to be closed down. There are different levels of lockdown that impact on the actual work of the NPA. So it has been affected in those kind of aspects. So in fact, our performance, although it has been affected, it has been fairly fine in terms of, if you look at our conviction rates in the past financial year. But you can actually tell that there has been a significant impact on just case finalization and how things could have been if there wasn't a pandemic.
Bulelwa, well done to your organization for at least getting some stuff done, and that your conviction rate is still looking good at this moment. And our condolences to you and your colleagues for any of those who've been affected by COVID-19. That was NPA spokesperson Bulelwa Makeke. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We'll be right back.